Today, protests continue across the country and the world over the death of George Floyd at the hands of police.
Outdoor dining is reopened. We check in with restaurant owners to see how the first weekend is going. Find out what visitors at Presque Isle beaches are saying about finally being able to get in the water and swim.
Live in high definition from your news leader, this is 1024 Action News at 11.
Good evening, I'm Brian Wilk. Restaurant owners are taking advantage of the nice weather to welcome back guests for outdoor dining. Star Bodie spoke to owners about the changes and what their guidelines entail under the yellow phase. She joins us now in the studio with more. Hey, Star.
Hi, Brian. It's the first weekend restaurants with patio dining in Erie County are reopened. The owners we spoke to tell us it's pleasing to see the amount of people all weekend long after what felt like a long waiting game. For more than 2 months, restaurants with outdoor patio dining waited to welcome back its guests.
I've talked to many people that said like this was maybe the last spot they spent on March 16th before the shutdown, and it's the first spot they came back to once they were allowed to come back. So it's very nice and very exciting, and to see some familiar faces coming back, people you haven't seen in months. Melody
tells us this weekend's weather played a large factor on UPIG 6 Tap House's revenue on reopening weekend. On the bayfront, the Sloppy Duck is seating more than 120 guests throughout the exterior of the restaurant, with restrictions set in place at the host stand.
Everybody's been real patient, and this is a trial weekend for us. We're working out a lot of bugs, but everybody has been very supportive and working with us nicely.
The Sloppy Duck is also getting creative with outdoor dining amenities like its tiki huts and social distance waiting areas. Some restaurant owners tell us that they're still overcoming some challenges on the first weekend back in business.
It's been a little challenging wearing the masks with the heat. It's harder for us to catch our breath, and we're constantly, our mouths are dry. But for the most part, they're just excited. They'll follow the rules, anything that they need to do, and the guests have just been happy.
Griffith tells us it's been helpful that the Presque Isle beaches also reopened this weekend, allowing guests to stop by after leaving the state park. Now, restaurants like Chick-fil-A's is using disposable napkins, condiments, and reusable disposable menus for its safety. Brian?
Star, thank you. Today, protests continue across the country and the world nearly 2 weeks after George Floyd died in Minneapolis while being arrested by police. ABC's Megan Tavarian is in San Diego with the latest.
Today, protesters gaining traction and growing across the country and the world. In London, thousands of people demonstrating outside the U.S. Embassy. In Bristol, England, protesters dragging the statue of a slave trader through the streets, throwing it into the river. The demonstrations reaching Spain, Italy, even Australia.
That's the best thing we can do is unite. At the end of the day, we're all fighting for the same thing.
And here at home in the city where George Floyd died, calls for drastic change. The city's mayor, Jacob Fry, booed after refusing a protester's demand to abolish the city's police department. And in Washington, one of the largest crowds yet in that city, a sea of protesters marching toward the White House.
Whose street? Our street. Whose land? Our land.
Overnight, protesters adding the words "defund the police" to a mural that was originally commissioned by the Department of Public Works to read "Black Lives Matter." This morning, D.C.'s mayor questioned about whether the city will remove it.
Well, it's not a part of the mural, and we certainly encourage expression, but we are using the city streets for city art.
Overnight, a Virginia police officer arrested and charged with assault after this violent takedown of a black man caught on police body camera. The white officer firing his stun gun at the man as he walked away. The officer then using the stun gun again while pinning the man to the ground.
We can all agree that the footage of this incident is unsettling. I want our community to know that we are pursuing charges that are in line with current law.
Tomorrow, former police officer Derek Chauvin, who held George Floyd to the ground with his knee, will make his first court appearance. He's facing second-degree murder and second-degree aggravated assault charges.
And Joe Biden will travel to Houston, Texas on Monday to privately meet with and offer his condolences to the family of George Floyd. Biden has delivered speeches calling for the end of systematic racism in the nation after Floyd's death. In a speech in Philadelphia last week, Biden emphasized with those who are protesting across the nation in ways President Donald Trump has not. Biden has criticized Trump's response to the unrest across the nation, saying, quote, "It's time for him to step out of his own bunker and take a look around at the consequences of his words and his actions." And a dozen new COVID-19 deaths reported in the state today. According to the Pennsylvania Department of Health, there were 506 additional positive cases of COVID-19 reported. That brings the total number of positive cases statewide to over 75,000. In addition, there were 12 new deaths reported. The state is reporting 4 new cases for Erie County, bringing the total to 367. Now let's take a look at COVID-19 numbers across the region. Crawford County is reporting 30 cases of COVID-19. Warren County reporting 5 cases. Chautauqua County 101 cases and 6 deaths. Ashtabula County, Ohio has 372 cases and 38 deaths. And Tropical Storm Cristobal making landfall today in Louisiana. This is the 3rd named storm of what is expected to be an active hurricane season. Whitney Wild has the details.
Tropical Storm Cristobal making landfall in Louisiana Sunday, bringing wind and rain to states along the Gulf Coast. The city of New Orleans posting an informational video on social media asking residents to shelter in place ahead of its first major storm of the season.
We just want to make sure that everybody continues to stay safe, continues to shelter in place, and continues to practice safe hygiene and masking while you're at home, because we are in the midst of COVID as well.
Tropical storm warnings are posted for much of the Louisiana coastline, Mississippi, Alabama, and portions of the Florida Panhandle. At the moment, flooding is the biggest concern.
As you can see, the water has come over the road and connected to the bayou.
We've seen some rain bands coming through, and fortunately, we'll see a rain band come through, and it'll give us a little break so those drainage pumps can catch up.
Neighboring states to the east, including Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and even the Carolinas, will each pick up several inches of rain in a short period of time, which could trigger flash flooding.
Obviously, as you can see, very dangerous for people to be driving.
The storm will continue to progress north into Iowa and Wisconsin, a region that rarely sees tropical storms in its backyard. In New Orleans, I'm Whitney Wild.
A sheriff's deputy is dead and 2 other officers are injured after a shooting in Santa Cruz County, California Saturday. Officials say the 3 officers were ambushed with gunfire and multiple explosive devices while responding to reports of a suspicious-looking van. That's when 38-year-old Sergeant Damon Gutzwiller was shot and killed. A second Santa Cruz County deputy was struck by gunfire or shrapnel from an explosive and then struck by a vehicle. That deputy is now in critical condition. A California Highway Patrol officer was also injured after being shot in the hand. The suspect was shot and taken into custody a short time later. And here at Jet 24, we're taking the time to salute our area high school seniors. So this is our way of saying congratulations to everyone in the class of 2020. And coming up on Jet 24 Action News at 11, someone opens fire on a police station in Houston, Texas. Some officers saying 50 to 60 shots may have been fired. That's after Craig's forecast. Hey, Craig.
Capping off a great weekend, Brian. Another beauty tomorrow and a big warm-up. The forecast coming up.
From your news leader, you're watching Brian Wilk, meteorologist Craig Flint, and Mike Fenner with sports. This is Jet 24 Action News, your news leader.